it's that time of the year again. With Halloween behind us and Christmas ahead, writers are focused on one thing: writing a novel in 1 month, or at least 50,000 words. For those who don't know, NaNoWriMo is an annual challenge which takes place every November. Standing for National Novel Writing Month, the goal is to write at least 50,000 words in order to beat the challenge. Writers who haven't participated in the challenge have likely heard of it, as the event is discussed on blogs, mailing lists, YouTube, social media, and so on. Whether you watch writing vlogs or videos geared towards writing advice, it's something every writer mentions. In all honesty, I've never participated in the challenge. The main reason is that I'm typically in the middle of a project when November begins, and dropping everything to start something new feels jarring to me. That said, NaNoWriMo is perfect for writers who are feeling stuck or just need a creative boost. Fall is already an inspiring time, with its festivities and fabulous foliage, but having a community to write alongside, a stockpile of resources, and a common goal hardly hurts. Now, while I haven't participated in NaNoWriMo specifically, I'm someone who regularly churns out rough drafts, and as of writing this, I'm a handful of chapters away from finishing the rough draft of Book 7 in my series The Blood of Pandora. I haven't published any of my books yet, but if I don't continue writing, I become anxious, and I love writing the books alongside each other so that in editing or drafting, I can keep them cohesive with one another. As such, I know what helps me to keep my butt in the chair, especially when the weather turns cold. And these are my 4 musts for writing in November. Number 1, music playlists. This one is a cliche at this point, but there's a reason so many writers swear by it. Music speaks to the soul. It's a universal hobby, and I challenge you to find someone who dislikes music. Some people listen to it intentionally, while others utilize it as background noise to get shit done. But as a writer, you'll likely use it as a mixture of both. Some writers listen to music while they write. Personally, I find music while I'm writing to be distracting, though I love it for other activities like drawing. However, I make a point of listening to music between writing sessions, and I've come up with whole plots as a result of listening to the right songs. I have dozens of playlists on Spotify dedicated to individual characters, specific relationships, and separate novels. When I'm preparing to dive into a new book, I like to listen to the songs both before and during the months in which I'm tackling the project, as the songs, even those I've heard several times, give me new ideas. One writer who used music to inspire her was Stephanie Meyer, and those who have read the Twilight Illustrated Guide can see the playlists she enjoyed during each novel in the saga. Meyer even went as far as imagining her scenes beat by beat, watching the characters in her mind walk in time to songs. Other songs helped her to capture the mood or voice of her characters. Unsurprisingly, many of the songs on her playlist are moody, with some addressing the tragedy of immortality or loneliness. I can relate to this process, and whether you love or hate Twilight, you can't fault Meyer's process for getting her stories down. Some of the bands Meyer listened to were courteous enough to include their songs in the actual movies. And if you're looking for bookish songs that also have a spooky fall vibe, you can't go wrong with either the songs Meyer listened to or the songs which ended up in the Twilight films. Number 2, outline and characters. If you've heard of NaNoWriMo, you've probably heard of Preptober as well. given all the fuss around Halloween and Thanksgiving if you're Canadian, it can be easy to overlook this stage of the process. But you'll find the writing process easier if you go into it with a plan. Throughout Preptober, writers, when they aren't binging on candy and spooky TV shows, should be focused on laying the groundwork for their novel. This includes making an outline, creating character sheets, and laying out a plan for achieving your goals in November, such as deciding how many words you'll write each day, what times you'll write during, and how many chapters you hope to complete in a week. There are plenty of ways to outline a book, a step even pantsers should consider, as well as a number of ways you might create characters. On my channel, I've discussed ways to create new but compelling characters, as well as my personal process for outlining. But there are endless YouTube channels and blogs eager to give you advice, especially on these specific topics. Some writers swear by Save the Cat, others by the hero's journey. In creating their characters, some will use the Enneagram. When I outline, I try to include the major characters' wants, needs, and fears. Your outline and even your characters might change during the process, but writing will be that much easier if you at least have a guide to consult. If you're in need of more writing advice as the month goes on, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I have a writing advice playlist, as well as one discussing inspiration itself. Number 3, warm clothes and blankets. This one is specific to the season, but NaNoWriMo always takes place in November, and so it goes without saying that it gets bloody cold. Distractions of any kind can make writing difficult. Any kind of discomfort might sap your desire to write altogether, and being cold is definitely a vibe killer for me. I'm sensitive to the cold, and when I'm focused on how icy my hands are or how drafty the house is, I can't concentrate on my work. Instead, all I can think of is having a hot shower, with the result being that I'll hide in the shower or huddle under a blanket in the corner without working on my book. Fall is one of my more creative periods, but I need to be warm, and this can be achieved through several methods. First, I'd advocate for having warmer clothes. This can seem obvious, but it's easy to overlook. Are your feet covered? Try putting on fuzzy slippers or at least some socks. Are your ears cold? Try throwing a blanket around your head or a toque. If you're at home, pajamas are valid too. Some claim that pajamas are a productivity killer, but I believe it depends on the time of day. In the morning, it's best practice to change into a fuzzy sweater and long pants. At night, though, I'd go for pajamas. I find they're often warmer than any of the clothes I own, especially if they're a set designed for the winter, and they'll pair nicely with slippers, a housecoat, and a blanket. Taking a hot shower in the afternoon, provided it doesn't compromise your writing time, can also keep you cozy, so long as you change into something warm to trap the heat in. You'll want to dry quickly and keep the heat in the bathroom though, or your shower could end up chilling you instead. Make sure to dry your hair thoroughly, and as an added bonus, change into clothes that are already warm. If you can pull fresh pajamas hot from the dryer, that's one of the best feelings in the world. Finally, you should have something hot on hand. Whether that's a hot chocolate, a tea, or the perennial pumpkin latte, my hands often get cold on the dreariest days, and having a steaming mug to clutch can alleviate that feeling. The hot liquid can also soothe my throat, especially if I've caught my annual fall cold. As a quick aside, be sure to like this video if you're enjoying it so far. Number 4, inspiration sources. This applies to the whole year, but is especially important if you want to write quickly or are liable to run into specific roadblocks, like writing realistic dialogue or creating a villain that doesn't sound cliché. There are a number of resources when it comes to learning the craft of writing or connecting with other writers. But you should have your go-to list of people, blogs, movies, and more which inspire you. Thankfully, all of my favorite films and books are considered fallish. This means I can devote my time to marathons of Harry Potter, Twilight, Lord of the Rings, and The Hunger Games. 4 series which always make me feel good and give me a creative boost. I've always taken a great deal of inspiration from these series, whether I enjoyed them as books or films, and they help me to lean into the autumn vibe. Make a list of the TV shows, movies, and video games that speak to you. Chances are some of those properties inspired you to become a writer in the first place. And you can recapture that feeling you had as a child when you revisit them. One of my favorite video game series is Fable, a game that fits right in with the fall mood. The game has creepy monsters, 2 of which are inspired by werewolves and zombies, 2 forests, one which is perpetually autumn, and the other which is comprised of eerie music and skeleton trees, and a plot that's focused on an unsettling villain and his quest to acquire a demonic sword. I try to play it every year, just because of how fallish it is, but also so I can reclaim that feeling I had as a kid, when I'd lose myself in the world. Beyond your favorite franchises, you should also have a list of writers you follow. They don't all have to be writing advice channels, though a number should be. You can also find writers who focus on vlogging their process and journey as a writer, along with writers who are more book-focused, chronicling their favorite books, the books they'd like to read, their reading goals, their book hauls, and so on. Writing advice channels get you thinking about your story, but writing vlogs are inspirational, even informative in their own way, because they give you insight into how others are tackling their projects, and are a reminder that you're not alone on this path. Seeing a fellow writer plan her novel and take a break to bake something is just heartwarming. And I don't need to tell you that feeling good is conducive to creativity. Of course, I hope you'll watch this channel, Otherworldly Fiction, as I have a playlist dedicated solely to writing advice. But you should have several creators you follow. Some I enjoy include Jenna Morisi, Brandon McNulty, and Mandy Lynn, all of whom focus on different aspects of the process. Brandon digs into the writing itself, while Mandy Lynn is focused on marketing and managing publishing platforms like Kindle and Ingram. I've also recently discovered Sincerely V, if you're looking for a more vlog-based approach. She has several vlogs relating to NaNoWriMo, Preptober, and enjoying the fall season while purchasing books and working on her novel. I could go on and on, but the point is that you should find the creators who speak to you. I've listed mainly writers at this point, but you should find creators covering topics that relate to your story as well, such as channels around psychology or mythology, depending on your genre and the kind of story you're hoping to tell. I've never done NaNoWriMo before, though as of the time of writing this script, I'm considering it. But I have been able to write consistently, and these are the strategies, especially in the cooler months, which have worked for me. Whether it's preparing your characters and outline, keeping yourself cozy, or revisiting the franchises and creators that speak to you, these have been my 4 musts for NaNoWriMo. Finding creativity can be hard, but it doesn't have to be, and autumn itself is a perfect source of inspiration. It's a favorite season for many, myself included, and there are elements specific to fall itself that just make creating that much easier. If you're in need of more inspiration as we head into NaNoWriMo, click the video on the left, where I discuss the ways in which fall inspires me. Or if you need help creating characters for your story, click the video on the right, where I take you through the 3 stages of character creation. If you've made it this far, be sure to subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching and happy writing.